Cosme, I thought had excellent games. They almost had a perfect sheet. I think the only kind of play you'd say for Gates is like on the screen, like be a little bit more aggressive to get that guy on the ground. But, ultimately, like when you go back and watch the pockets, watch the 5-step, watch the 3-step, they are good pockets. And those guys are competing at a high level to kind of keep that pocket nice and clean. I thought Cosme had a really, really nice game. Again, there was one where I thought he maybe could have helped Wiley out with eyes, but the linebacker's kind of looking like he might blitz. So he's kind of in between, like I'm to the slide. This is my guy, and I got to get out there to help out on the tackle. The sack that they gave up wasn't their fault. They got the slide going to the left. It's a 3-man slide. It's a 4-man pressure. Like, you can't do anything about that, right? Like, that's just the quarterback's got to get the ball out of his hand. And he did. Right. And again, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's something that in this offense, this is going to be a big adjustment for people this year to watch. Hopefully something that you see often and you're like, oh, that was great. That was that thing that Craig and Logan talked about being a good thing for this offense. This offense has hot routes. Like this offense, the solution for pressure sometimes is not to block it. And last year, Scott Turner's offense, they didn't really throw hot ever. Like that wasn't really a part of that offense. They tried to have other solutions to pressure, and sometimes they weren't very feasible. This offense, sometimes it's like, hey, six man blitz, 5-man pressure, but we're going to put the back in a position to quick release, or this receiver's got to be hot. And Sam's just got to get the ball out. And there were, I think, 2 of those in this game. One of the ones was the one that he tried to get it out to Robinson. He's a little late, and it gets knocked down by the blitzer. So, it was a Gibson. Yeah, but those are when we talk about a sack being on the quarterback, literally everyone that's supposed to be blocked is blocked. Yeah. But the quarterback's got to get the ball out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, even on that play, like he looks, and so there's not like hot routes in the sense that like old. Jason Witten, Tony Romo, where it's like you're adjusting the route to accommodate the blitz. It's like you should have something in the concept where the ball should go, right? So he, I think AEB on that play did a really nice job of giving him formational tells, right? He has the tight end kind of soloed to the right, the back bumps back into the formation. Instead of shifting like the defense matches it, they kind of bump, which is usually a pretty good indication of zone. He's got guys stacked over the wide 3-receiver set. So I'm kind of like, maybe that dude's blitzing. Dude does blitz, right? And then you're like, okay, that ball's got to go to one of the unders because they're basically running like a post, like a corner or seam, I don't know, seam or post, whatever you call it, and then 2 underneath routes. The ball's got to go to one of those underneath routes if that's the side you're working. And again, they did a good job. The defense of Cleveland did a good job of clamping it. But for him to go like pat, like, I don't care if the dude's covered, you got to get the ball out. Like it's got to be at the dirt at the receiver's feet, or you just read the wrong side because the other side is to the zone dropping side. So the end is dropping out. It's a fire zone. So they're bringing pressure to the offensive left. They're dropping the defense to the offensive right. The back to the flat is like never been more open in his whole life. And so I don't know if he's reading the wrong side. There are answers to both sides, but that to me is 100% on the quarterback. And then you look at the one you were talking about later in the game where the ball gets tipped going to the back, like they get double A pressure. It's a 6-man pressure. They got 5-man in protection. They slide it. He knows where the ball's supposed to go. He just doesn't make the throw. And if he does make the throw, I think Gibson, I'm not going to say he's going to score there, but like that's a big play, And so, right. So like that stuff is stuff that the offensive line has no control over really. And outside of those plays, like, I mean, they played really well. And let's talk about Wiley because I know people want to hear about Wiley. Yeah. So basically what the thing with Wiley is I felt like, so first off, he's going against Za'Darius Smith, who for my money is like probably a top 12 pass rusher in the NFL. Like he's really good. He's a good football player. And you can tell that Wiley, hadn't really had a lot of opportunity to study his film, like, because he's in Cleveland. They probably watched the Hall of Fame game to see the defenses they're going to run. But like Za'Darius Smith is a guy who is a speed to power rusher who likes to beat the inside edge of the pass protector. Like he's not a big, like, I'm going to beat you around the edge kind of guy. And Wiley consistently was just oversetting his line. So what I mean by that is like when you're pass protecting, you got to think there's an imaginary line between me and the quarterback. I can't see the quarterback, but I know the rusher's trying to find that line. And as long as I'm in between that line with my hat slightly inside the rusher, I should be in a good position to pass protect. And Wiley, I think, again, just maybe not understanding who he was going against was, I'd say probably 3 or 4 times was just slightly past that line. And that is tough, right? Because that Za'Darius Smith weighs like 285 pounds, 290 pounds. Like some guys you can catch and hold there with that inside hand. So for him, it's his left hand on the right side, catch that inside move and kind of sit it down. With him, I don't think you can do that. So you got to be a little bit thicker on the line. And then there's a couple times where he's getting back chip help and he's still oversetting the line. It's like, understand that you're getting chip help. The response of 9 out of 10 rushers is to transition to an inside move or to a bull, right? And so set tighter, right? Trust the back to do his job. Trust the guard's going to help you when the slides to you. So on the sack, for example, they get in split backs. Alex Armour releases out and he's waiting for the chip. This is exactly what he's supposed to do. He doesn't collision the end. The end runs right into Wiley, but Wiley's past the point of his pass rush line and gives a soft into his shoulder and has to get a holding call in the end zone. Like, know the back's there to help you, set accordingly. And Cosme actually has eyes out to you. So all I need to do is kind of lose a little slower and he's going to come help me. So I think, to me, and everyone's like, are you worried about that? I'm not that worried about it, because I think that's something that can be corrected. And I know he's working some new techniques with Juan Castillo and Travell Wharton. They're working on this kind of angle set, this B set, this aggressive jump set. And those are great sets because they take the air out of the rusher, but they also make it hard to like consistently find your line, because you're working on a 45 as opposed to working straight back to your line. So a lot of people do it. I think he can get it corrected. And I think physically, it's not like he's getting beat like a drum. It's just like a technical execution that I think is going to get better. And I think they can emphasize that, because, like, when you watch him against Montez Sweat, who again is a big speed to power guy, like, he's gotten better each week against that. So obviously he can do it. It's just in this game, I felt like he was a little bit off. And when you're going against a good pass rusher like Za'Darius Smith, it's going to show itself.
Yeah, no, that's really great insight, because he hasn't had the greatest camp, but we've put that in perspective a lot of, it's hard to have a really great camp going against Montez Sweat every day. Montez Sweat's awesome and he's in his prime, and that's going to cause problems. And it's also the kind of rusher that has given Wiley the most problems. Right. So if you have your worst nightmare every day, in some ways it's great because you can try to get better at it because it's in practice. But all of a sudden you get to a game, you see someone else. The sample size is small. And that's the other thing I think that I would emphasize is, we're talking about very small sample sizes here. So let's say Wiley does that the first couple of drives, then they correct it on the sideline, and he gets it right for the rest of the game. Well, we don't know whether it would have been 2 mistakes for 4 quarters or 2 mistakes every quarter. Like, we just don't know. And I think people, because it's so concentrated, the kind of like the examples are so concentrated, people just extrapolate that out if that's what it would be for the entire game. And obviously we see on the third drive, they're able to put it together. But even on that first drive, like the second drive never had a chance. That is what it is. The first drive, they were cooking. And obviously if you don't have the hold and Bates catches it, like, you're really cooking. Mm-hmm. So you get to that third drive and they just keep going and doing the same type of stuff. And they put it together. And ultimately Jahan runs this incredible route. Sam puts it a good enough ball out there. He catches it and is able to dance into the end zone. But I think what you saw is what this offense can be. You saw some of the quick stuff. You saw the ball get out quickly. You saw some good use of spacing concepts to give the quarterback options. You saw some of the deeper stuff down the field. You saw the pocket move. You saw play action. Like, you saw a little bit of everything. And I do think there was that rhythmic nature to it that once it got going a little bit, is not only good, obviously, for the offense as a whole, but like is going to help out the offensive line too. And by the way, I think another factor on that third drive is they start with a big run. Like, if you can get one big explosive run play, like, that changes the entire makeup of a drive. And that's not how those first 2 drives started, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that I left the game like very optimistic, about the offense, about the philosophy. And again, this is like just a taste of what we've been seeing in practice, but the formations for the defensive coverage tells and the pressure tells, like, that's great. Throwing out a 21 personnel, like, that's great because it subverts expectation. It helps with pass protection, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of really high level kind of thought process stuff going in there. But I think it's like, something like, I'm an offensive coordinator at the high school level. And one of the things that you see is, like, the second you get a big penalty or you take a negative play or a drop pass even, it gets you out of your offensive rhythms. And so I think when you look at that, I think you say, man, there's all this really good stuff happening in terms of philosophy and kind of vision for the offense. But like, it's impossible. It's like damn near impossible to convert a 3rd and 32. Like, it is. It's just like, it's not going to happen. And so, like, those are mistakes that kind of compounded. And it's hard to overcome. So you got to like kind of live to play another down, so to speak. And that's what they did. And I like that they showed some resilience. I will say the last drive was against Cleveland's like second group, so you expect them to kind of have that level of production. But I think what you see there is you see a crispness to the offense that you haven't seen in a while here. Just an attention to detail, a rhythm, and this is going to sound stupid, but like an artistic perspective, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That gets me excited for the season. So I think there's a lot of good things to glean from it. And you mentioned the Wiley thing, which I think is kind of the one big blemish on the day, because I think you look at the other four guys, they played pretty good. I think Sam, he played excellent. Wiley's kind of the guy. But to your point, like Juan Castillo after the safety, the first thing he says to him, I hear it because I'm on the sideline for the sideline reporting stuff, is like, he's like, dude, you're oversetting this. Like, set your angle tighter. And so they know it. They can get that corrected, and I think it will get better. And they honestly, I think, in having conversations with people around the building, they know that Wiley's not a perfect player, right? But what they do like about Wiley is that he's a competitive son of a gun who's going to fight every single down. And I think there is value in that also, because when you watch him on the run combinations, when you watch him in the run game, when you watch him on some of the stuff where it requires him to finish plays, he does that at a high level. So I think he's a guy, if football is important to him, he's going to get it corrected. And I think he's going to look much better in this practice against Baltimore, right? Kind of working this new line set. And I think ultimately, like, if you kind of take that out of the equation, you say, Sam played good, the receivers played good, the running backs look sharp. I mean, Gibson looks the best I've seen him look, man. Like, he caught a little swing pass later in that game. I think Brissett threw it to him. And his acceleration just looks like it's on a different level, And I think all of those things are kind of coalescing to make this nice, not perfect storm, but a very potent offensive unit, I think. So,
yeah. Before we get into the rest of the offense and then get into a little bit of the depth, we'll talk defense obviously later in the pod too. I want to do this, ask you this before I forget. How nervous were you to interview Josh Harris?
Dude, that's a really funny story. Like, he was sitting there, he's sitting in the front row. Yeah. I was like, man, should we try to get him? And the producer was like, if you could, go for it. And so then I was like talking to his security guy that I like know really well. And he's like, man, I don't know if I'd ask him. Because, like that security guard is used to the former owner. And the former owner
who absolutely would not have done it.
Yeah, and probably be pretty pissed at you for asking. And so I just went up and I was like, hey, man, like I work for, like, I know the security guard that was with him. Like, it's good to know security guards. And and he was like, yeah, man, like, hey, Josh, this is Logan Paulsen. He works for the team. He was like, hey, Josh, really nice to meet you. Would you mind doing like a 2-question interview at halftime? And he goes, like, what's it going to be about? I could tell he's a little apprehensive. And then he goes, just keep it general. And yeah, no problem. And he was so kind and generous with his time. And like, it was great. I was a little nervous that we were going to screw up the timing because he had somewhere to be at halftime. So I was like, let's make sure we're on time with this. But other than that, he was very accommodating, very nice guy. Like, you wouldn't know that he was an owner of a team. Let me just say that, which is very refreshing.
Did you get a chance to talk to him at all off camera?
No, because he was like right from
very quick.
Right, boom there, and then going. So.
Yeah, I would love to ask him, like, why were you sitting in the front row? And like, I was laughing so hard at that because like, he's an NBA owner. Like, to me, that's how I knew Josh Harris before this. Obviously, he owns multiple things. But like in the NBA, the owners do sit in the front row. They often sit right next to the bench. But in the NFL, like, you sit in a booth, man. And I thought it was so great that he was just like, no, I'm going to sit right there. I'm going to get kind of a feel of the sidelines. But especially when it's raining, like, I thought it was great that he was on the sideline.
I was just like, and again, like, as a player, like, ownership's always feels a little bit distant, right? Yeah. I feel like this was the ultimate, like, no, like, I'm here with you on this journey. You know what I'm saying? And like, it probably, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or whatever, but it felt like, I was like, this is really, again, as a former player, it felt really cool in the rain to see him hanging out, him and his boy, like, and the fans were right there with him. It wasn't like there were 5 rows of empty seats. It was like people were sitting behind him, Browns fans who didn't know who he was. You know what I mean? And it was just like, he's there. Funny. It was crazy. So I got a ton of respect for that. And, he was great in the interview, really accommodating. So thank you, Mr. Josh Harris. But yeah, man, I was a little nervous, because I was like, what am I going to ask him? Like, it's like super softball-y. And, he knocked it out of the park. So good for him.
He's a smart guy. That's for sure. Any other fun sideline stories we can get to, then we'll get back into the breakdown?
Well, obviously, like, we're standing out there, and you're standing out there with a bunch of like seasoned, camera guys and, equipment guys on the sideline. And I swear to you, like I got the IFB in my ear, like listening to the truck. And they're like, it might be canceled, it might be, whatever. And the first person to know of the whole thing was the dude that was the camera guy. He like puts his camera down, puts it under the table. I'm like, where are you going? He's like, dude, it's lightning delay, bro. And then like 5 minutes after that, we got the announcement, but he was off the field, out of there, and I was like, that's the guy you want to be around, when you want updates. So it was really funny. They, obviously great crew. And then being on the sideline, like last year I was tethered to a spot, like I was like plugged into the wall, so I couldn't really go anywhere. But this year I could like walk up and down and kind of listen to, Juan Castillo talking to the O-line and listen to the linebacker coach kind of, it was just, which was way more fun for me just to kind of see that and hear some of that stuff. So yeah, it was cool.
That's really cool. You did a great job, as you always do. I love
Thanks,
watching you
man.
on the sidelines. And we get. It's sad that we only get one more. The ESPN crew do a great job at the Baltimore game, but excited to have you guys back for Cincinnati. By the way, did you ever find your headphones?
Yes, I did find them actually.
Who do you think hid them? Who do we need to fight?
What were you saying?
I said, now that you've got your headphones on, who do we need to fight? Who do we think hid them? Where were they?
So Jeff Walker definitely came into the studio and took my headphones.
If you had given me one guess, 100% Jeff Walker.
Yep.
100%. All right, Jeff Walker. You come in, sometimes you just barge in, you're like, hey, I'm here. And I'm like, cool. Like, what are you doing here? Which is fine. Jeff's a delight. But can you please leave my guy's headphones alone? He's a professional radio producer. He's got things to do.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you.
You're welcome.
favorite story is, I think we were playing Cincinnati. Was it Cincinnati?
That's not what depends on the story, but maybe we were playing Cincinnati.
So Logan catches this touchdown.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was Cincinnati. Yep.
It was Cincinnati. So we put in this play, and it was like, I think we called it Hoss Juke or something like that. I can't remember what we called it in that offense, but Logan's on a seam, right? So he's our vertical threat, taking the top off the defense.
Digging out, guys.
We're talking in the week. I don't think we ever said it in the install with those guys, but they're like, listen, Logan's not even in the progression. He's taking the top off this thing. We're trying to work this little option route down. And they bust this coverage.
Bad.
And I mean, he is screaming wide open.
I wasn't even supposed to be on the play. They were supposed to sub somebody else in because I thought I was too slow to run this route. Just for the context here for everybody.
So he's screaming wide open. And I'm like, Matt, throw it at his back shoulder. You might hit him in stride. If you try and back shoulder him. Threw it right at him. He catches it. It was an awesome touchdown. Yeah. Just the celebration afterwards was so much fun. For me, it was always fun celebrating the touchdowns with the guys that didn't score them all the time. You know, like
take that, Julio Jones.
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm saying that, but like your role for us was you did the dirty work, and when you see guys that do the dirty work get rewarded for it, that was really cool. Something I'll never forget. The caveman. Yeah. And the caveman was in there in the end zone celebrating. It was awesome.
Show on the Team 980, 5 o'clock on this Monday, the Monday after the Commanders beat the Browns 17-15 in their preseason opener. They've actually had 2 practices since. They're off to Baltimore tomorrow for the joint practices, which means we have a lot to talk about with the man who you just heard in the open, Sam Fortier. It is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Mr. Fortier, how are you? Hopefully dry and inside. Apparently it's monsooning out.
I am driving home and from practice right now, and it is indeed a monsoon. Like, I asked Ant, like when he called me, like, can you hear me okay? Because it's pretty loud in my car from all these raindrops.
Yeah, like, I'm asking you, this is your friend, and I'm serious, and feel free to be like, no, I should probably, like, not drive and talk. Are you good to actually do this?
Yeah. My AirPods are in and my 2 hands are on the wheel. I could pass driver's ed right now.
Excellent. Okay, good. Well, I hope that's always the case, that whenever you're behind the wheel, you could pass driver's ed, that incredibly high bar of passing driver's ed. Actually, it's probably better than we all drive when we're having a driving instructor next to us. Anyway, the point is, Sam, they played a preseason game on Friday. Biggest takeaway from the game, there was a lot there for a lot of different guys up and down the roster, but, like, when you sat down to write Friday, what's the thing that was most intriguing to you?
Shockingly, it was the quarterback. Because
no
Sam
way!
Sam Howell is obviously the biggest question mark on this team. He's the most important question mark. It's the most important position, yada, yada, yada. So for me, the biggest thing was that he looked pretty crisp. The sack was obviously on him. But, if you go back and look at it, I think that he played pretty well. He processed rather quickly. He got the ball out rather quickly. He created off schedule, particularly on that 4th down when he got flushed out of the pocket and found Cole Turner for the first down. Like, there were a lot of things to like from that game. I'm far from christening him as the guy or anything like that, but I thought it was a really good first step, particularly in this new offense.
Sam Fortier, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So to me, what stood out was like, oh, there's solutions in this offense. And I think you see some of the short stuff. You see, obviously, the big play to Jahan. Like, when you took a deeper look, one of the things that we always talked about with some of the previous quarterbacks here was not taking some of those bigger opportunities. Sam was efficient, Sam, I guess, went 9 of 12. The 3 incompletions you can all chalk up to either drops or batted balls, etc. But, like, did he actually get the most out of the offense?
Well, I actually would go back and say that I thought one of his incompletions was, like, one of his best throws. Obviously, the throw to Jahan, everyone sticks out in their mind, but, like, right before the Andrew Wiley hold in the end zone, like, he feels pressure, he gets out, and he just throws the ball away, basically punts to live another down. And, like, I was really impressed by his internal clock to say, okay, like, I got to get rid of this thing. I got to keep us out of bad situations. And obviously the safety ends up happening, and he doesn't do it on the sack. But that moment when you're backed up, I was like, oh, like, this dude, yeah, there are solutions in the offense like everything else, but I was just very impressed by his feel for the game in that moment.
As was I. And I thought, too, his scrambling ability, not just the obvious of, like, yeah, he picks up first down with his legs, but when he got out the back of the pocket, Logan made a really interesting comparison to Russell Wilson and the way he used to escape the pocket. Like, for a smaller quarterback, I thought that was great because if you step up into the pocket, you just step up into a wall of human beings and you can't see over them, and that doesn't actually help versus a guy like Brissett who can still see over at 6'4". So I actually thought, like, even the mobility, it's going to look a little different than some of the more traditional stuff and step up in the pocket and kind of the old school mentality. But I thought the mobility, like, really, really showed how he elevates the ceiling of this offense as well.
And I would also say dramatically raises the floor because he avoided some sacks. And I think that the way that he's going to be able to put himself in a better position to throw the ball out of bounds or to get the ball away or to give this guy a chance, like, I thought those were all impressive things, and kind of like you said, like, it's going to look different. I think he rolls to his left much better than quarterbacks we've seen here in the past, and part of that is the arm strength because he can still hit those throws even when he's not able to really put his body or his hips into it. But, like, when he rolls left, I think that's also pretty impressive, and we didn't see that a ton in the preseason game, but in practice it certainly stood out.
Definitely. Sam Fortier with us, Washington Post, here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. So the other big talking point, the other Achilles heel, and in this case, potentially, depending on how you want to look at it, a bugaboo, is the offensive line. Those first 2 drives undone by Wiley penalties. But what did you make of the line play as a whole? And what was kind of the vibe from Rivera and company about how fixable the problems are?
Yeah, I think that like Logan, I don't know if you've already mentioned this or talked to him about it, but I think that when you go back and look at it, the problems are problems. Like Charles Leno had a couple of snaps that you didn't love. Wiley had obviously the huge, the big penalties. But other than that, I thought the interior looked pretty good. I thought Sam Cosmi had some absolutely baller reps against Darius Smith, the best Browns pass rusher on the field at the time, because there's no Myles Garrett. I thought Nick Gates, complimented both of them pretty well. Chris Paul, you would have liked to see him be more aggressive, but he put himself in position to help to be aggressive. And so if he can be more consistent, if he can fire those hands out a little bit stronger, I think you're looking at a pretty good left guard situation, because I think this is more than anybody could have expected from Chris Paul as a 7th-round pick who played 1 game last year.
Anybody from down the roster that you think is worth noting, like a guy who all of a sudden may have helped his stock one way or the other before we get into practice over the last couple of days?
Would you count Christian Sip Holmes as a guy that's down the roster and needs to help himself?
I would. I think he was probably on the line, given the nature of he was a 7th-round pick last year, and they've got a ton of good corners, and I definitely think he helped himself. So he checks all the boxes for me.
Yeah, and I think really the physicality at the catch point and him knocking out some passes just because of his physicality, I thought that was pretty impressive. Mitchell Tinsley is another guy I think who helped himself, getting a little bit of buzz here coming out of the first preseason game, the receiver. I think that, those are 2 guys that I'm going to be looking forward to watching, coming up. I guess the second preseason game is until Monday, so not that soon, but it's certainly in joint practice as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you probably agree with me that the joint practices are actually more interesting and more valuable than the next preseason game.
I know a lot of people have that take, and I get it, but I still think that there's something about games that just mean a little bit more going at 100%. Because I think that even though it's joint practice and you're going to want to, and I understand the injury prevention element of it, I think they're valuable. And smarter football people than me say that they're more interested in them, like Ron Rivera. But I don't know. I think games still, for me, carry a little bit of extra weight.
So here, I'm not claiming to be, just for the record, I'm not claiming to be a smarter football person than you. I'm just going to make the argument as the person that I am, which is to say, I think because people pull back so much schematically in preseason games that even though they're not live tackling, even though there's not adrenaline, and I do think there's something to that, just kind of the gamer mentality of certain players, there's so much you can ascertain from a joint practice because you are actually putting it all out there. They're going to have periods that are basically live, and Bieniemy's going to call plays, and the DC, the Ravens, is going to call their plays, and they're going to line up and they're going to play football. And that ones-on-ones with everybody out there, not worried about, hey, this is going to be on TV and the Cardinals might be watching. I think that is why I would be amongst the group to say joint practices are more valuable, and you can also get a bunch of situational work in that might not come up in the preseason, but is absolutely going to be valuable to you during the regular season.
Oh, don't get it twisted. I think that joint practices are valuable for all of the reasons you just laid out, and I think that I think it's going to be very useful for Eric Bieniemy and the coaches and then the players as well. But for me, I think the thing that I'm thinking of here is, if Christian Holmes goes out and plays really well or really poorly against the Ravens, I am not going to read into it as much probably as, if he's doing it in the game or something like that. I mean, it'll certainly be notable. It'll be important. But I think that the game element is something that obviously I'm stuck on.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It actually raises an interesting point. I wonder if there is kind of a line of demarcation on the roster that, for player 38 and down, the game is more important, and players 37 and up, and this is completely a made-up number, and it would obviously depend on the team and how they rotate guys and whatever, but for guys that are, on the roster, going to play on offense and defense, the practices are more valuable to prepare for the season. But you start talking about the more fringe guys, that's the game is more valuable to show what they can do and make the roster in the first place.
Yes, I think that you and I have come to some sort of compromise or agreement or a nuanced discussion, which is definitely the radio is not a place for that. So I'm a little surprised, and I
you watch your mouth.
There.
You watch your mouth on this here nuanced, highfalutin radio show that does a lot of dumb stuff on regular occasion. It's the Hoffman Show. That's us on the Team 980, always live as well in the free Odyssey app. Sam Fortier with us, of course, Washington Post Commanders beat reporter. Last game thing, because his name hasn't come up yet, and I'm curious what kind of the rumblings were around Ashburn over the past couple of days. Quan Martin obviously had a rough one. There's no way around it. It doesn't mean that he's a bad player and he's a bust. He had some very specific things that he had to work on, and also, frankly, I think was the victim of a bad call on the second DPI, but, there's enough there. The refs call it. What's the vibe on Quan Martin after he gives up the touchdown and has the other penalty Friday night?
I'm absolutely stunned that question did not end with Chase Young. Like, what's the buzz around Ashburn because this guy's got a stinger and he didn't practice today? And that's
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Him and Sam Howell and Terry McLaurin are the people we talk about most. But, yeah, I mean, Quan Martin, it's funny. I talked to him yesterday because somebody did a screen grab of his Twitter likes right after the game, and I guess Quan Martin went into the locker room and just liked every tweet that was Quan Martin sucks, Quan Martin is a bust, and on and on and on. And I went up to him and I was like, why'd you do that? And he was just trying to motivate myself. Remember that when you suck, people are going to call you out. And so I think that Quan Martin is very excited for joint practices, for a game. Whatever he can do to show people that he deserves to be a second-round pick is the way that he put it to me. He's going to be excited to go out and show that.
All right. That brings us to practice and kind of the latest. And here's your softball, Sam. What is the latest on Chase Young, and will he practice in Baltimore?
Yeah, I think that we expect him to. Ron Rivera said that it was a self-reported stinger that took him out after 4 snaps of the preseason game, and I think that today it was a little different. I think not seeing him out there, particularly after Sam Cosmi goes down, goes into the tent, gets his knee wrapped, comes back out, for one-on-one reps. But Chase, they want to be extra cautious with him, obviously because of the knee, and he's going to be back out there when they think he's ready. I would expect him to be on the field for joint practices. They obviously want to ramp him up. The bigger concern for me, honestly, and I'm going to do a nice little pivot here, is Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
Logan Thomas. We haven't seen him in 2 weeks. He hasn't been outside even. We haven't seen him on the side field, and that's a calf injury where I get you want to be careful with that. Jahan had the hamstring last year, and they tried to bring him back just before he was ready, and then he re-aggravated it, and he missed 5 weeks. So I get the context of why you would want to bring Logan back slowly, especially an older guy, because you're probably thinking, hey, this guy doesn't need as many preseason reps. We just need him for Arizona. But, your number one tight end in an offense that uses tight ends a lot, not having practiced in 2 weeks, I'm going to raise my hand and say that's a red flag.
Yeah, no, I think we're getting to that point where you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore of they say it's no big thing. What's funny is I was trying to think of examples over the last couple of years with Rivera where they've kind of gone down this road. And the example is Curtis Samuel and Curtis Samuel. And 2 years ago, they said Curtis Samuel, it's not that big of a deal. And then it was a very, very, very big deal. And then last year, when they started to ramp him up and he'd miss a couple days or miss a day here, they'd vet day him here. They're like, we promise it's not a big deal. And he was healthy the entire year. If you had to give your best guess, Logan Thomas week 1, where are we on the Curtis Samuel scale?
Well, the thing about 2021 Curtis Samuel is that Ron Rivera, without saying it, tacit omission, did not reveal that Curtis Samuel had core surgery over the summer.
Right.
And that's why he wasn't practicing. That's why it took so long. And so if Logan Thomas had secretly had surgery in the last 2 weeks, I would say then the odds are low. But I don't want anyone to misconstrue that. I don't think that happened. There's no reason to suspect that has happened. But I do think it's different than 2021 Curtis Samuel is what I'm trying to say. And so for me, I still think the odds are decent. I certainly would not say 100%. I wouldn't say 0% either. It's probably somewhere in the middle. A little bit better than a coin flip is probably where my gut says Logan Thomas is at right now.
If he is out, do they have enough at tight end, or is this one of those where Every once in a while here, like, every year, the fan base loses its mind about a position in the offseason. And then in the regular season, it's like, wow, looks like the groupthink was right. And, a lot of times it happens exactly like this, where the reason the team is more confident than, say, the fan base is they're relying on one guy who they think is good. And if Logan Thomas is out there and good, like, they don't have a problem at tight end. If he's not, where are they at tight end?
This is where the Armani Rogers injury, I think, looms very large, because the way he was developing really made you confident about this group. Now, if you lose Logan, too, you're down to two of your top guys in John Bates and Cole Turner, who obviously have different skill sets. I don't think either of them are complete yet, although I will say Turner had a nice block in the preseason game, which is not necessarily his game as the former wide receiver. But I think the third tight end, if you do that, is Alex Arma, maybe. The fullback who can do a lot of different things. I think they'd like him a lot. But, unless I'm forgetting someone, Craig, those are your top three tight ends if Logan is out.
Well, that gets to a question that we have been asking on the show and that I will tackle again next is when we do our 53-man roster projection update, which is, do you go Curtis Hodges, who has a ton of potential and has flashed at times and the upside seems extraordinarily high, or do you go with Arma, who seems to fit a need in this Bieniemy offense because they definitely have been running a ton of fullback stuff?
Yeah, I personally would go with Arma, which is why I said him third, because, Curtis Hodges, for sure, I know he's a good route runner. I know he has athletic potential, but the hands have been too inconsistent for me in camp. I want to say Bieniemy once or twice has said, I'm sick of the drops after a Curtis Hodges drops. He's not saying it specifically to Curtis Hodges, but, the Hodges drop is the thing that puts him over the edge. And so to me, I think there's a lot of potential there, but we need to see more to increase his floor, I think, to keep him on the initial 53 rather than saying, hey, we like this guy, but there's enough questions there where, we're going to go with a different guy who blocks and does a lot of things that we really like in this offense as opposed to more of a project.
Sam Fortier with us from the Washington Post here on the Team 980. All right, quickly, Sam, last bucket of topics here, joint practices. First of all, what should we expect? I'm excited to get up there tomorrow. It's going to be 2 really intense days. We know that. But we've talked so much about kind of the practice structure with Bieniemy coming in. What do we expect with the Commanders going to Baltimore and how these practices are going to look?
Yeah, I'm curious to see that as well. Who is picking which practice structure? How, are they going to do a lot of third down situational stuff like the Commanders have been doing? Are they going to do more general stuff to get in reps of 11 on 11, things like that? Are they going to do one-on-ones? Fans are going to be out there, so I don't know I don't think that'll influence it at all, but I'm curious to see kind of what approach they take. And I'm a little curious to see how Eric Bieniemy handles it, because if you remember when the referees were out, he had no problem getting on the referees. So I'm very curious to see how he interacts with the Ravens players and coaches as well.
Yeah, typically the offense tends to dictate these kinds of things. So I wonder how different the two fields look, where the Ravens offense is on one getting whatever they do done, and Eric Bieniemy is just yelling at everybody on the other field. So that could be really fun to watch and see and how they split it up. Obviously, any particular players, matchup stylistically that you're really looking forward to? They've been playing the same guy, a Montez Sweat versus Andrew Wiley. Now they're going to go against different competition. Someone that you're really looking to prove, that they've actually made a jump, or that maybe they've just been in a bad matchup against their teammate. Who are the guys that you really have your eye on?
Offensive line. They did not. I think that they would tell you they wanted to play even better. I know we talked about the concerns, and maybe it's a little bit overblown, but I do think there's some stuff there. And Andrew Wiley, for sure, I know they go against a really good front in practice, maybe a top 5 front in football. I think the Ravens are good, but not quite as good. So I'm curious to see how they perform in this sort of setting, because I think that the Commanders also are interested. They're going to evaluate their guys. Where is our line at? Is the interior able to continue playing well? Can Charles Leno kind of, smooth out a couple of problems that he had? And can Andrew Wiley fix the mechanical flaw, the oversetting that allowed him to leave that soft inside shoulder open for, Zadarius Smith to run through 3 or 4 times and get pressure on Sam Howell. So that is the unit I am most interested in watching. And if I can do a shameless plug here, I have a little bit of a project on that unit dropping tomorrow morning.
Excellent. You can read that at WashingtonPost.com/sports. And now, Sam, we get to do my favorite thing, where I drop breaking news on you. Don't worry, though. You don't have to write this. This is not Commanders breaking news, just NFL breaking news. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Zach Martin has agreed to a restructured deal with the Cowboys. He is going to now be reporting to camp. He gets $8.5 million more, I believe, spread out over the next 2 years. Both years are fully guaranteed. So that's number one. I have two for you.
Okay, is the second one? I think I already know.
What? Guess. Go for it.
Ezekiel Elliott signing with the Patriots. Is that what you're
There you go. Hey! Guess the
Thanks.
breaking news. Yes, he announced on social media that he's signing with the Patriots. So there's that, which is nice, I guess. Zeke and the Patriots seems like a funky fit.
It does. I'm actually really excited that Zach Martin is back with the Cowboys because I love watching those battles with Duran and John Allen inside. That's football at its best in the trenches, and so it's great news, I think, for fans of football to see Zach Martin back in Dallas. Although, obviously, if you're a Commanders fan, I get why that would not be as exciting.
Right. If you just want an easy win, you would like Zach Martin not to be on the field because he's very, very good. And they're some of the numbers that they would put up on occasion, like as they're talking about him and the contract stuff, they're not good without him. But alas. And by the way, last thing, like for real on the way out, did you watch the Manziel thing?
I did not. I saw the clips on Twitter, especially of his agent, who I've seen at the combine and things like that. And
yeah,
it's funny, man. That stuff is funny.
It's very good. Two, I forgot, which is bad because I was working in Dallas at the time. Zach Martin is who the Cowboys took instead of Johnny Manziel.
Wow, what an absolute win for them. I also forgot that.
Yeah, I was reminded of that, and I was like, oh, right, they took the Hall of Fame left guard. Good job, Will McClay, who's the guy who's actually like the brains of the operation down there. Anyway, that's Sam Fortier, boys and girls, here with us on the Hoffman Show. See you tomorrow in Baltimore, my friend.
Of course. Thanks for having me as always, man.
You got it. Sam Fortier, read his work. And again, he's got a project dropping tomorrow morning, WashingtonPost.com/sports. Or just open up your newspaper when they throw it at you in the morning at your front porch or however you get your newspaper delivered, if you still get the actual paper. And you'll read Sam's project on the offensive line. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Hopefully I can do that before I get in my car. Although really, if I'm being honest, because I'm going to have to get in my car very early to get to these joint practices, I hope to just not spill my coffee and then arrive safely and no coffee on my shirt on time. That's really, frankly, my goal for tomorrow. All right, coming up next, we are promising to do this after every preseason game, an updated prediction for the 53. Who is going to make the team for the Commanders? We will discuss next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. The show that just had a slight heart attack because we almost knocked our laptop over. That would have been bad, Anthony. Can't be doing that. Can't be breaking stuff.
Bad is an understatement.
Yeah.
I think that would have been the max fine because the whole show would have been
Kaputz.
Yeah.
Not good. By the way, I need to look out the window real quick. Apparently, the storm was crazy. Rachel sent me a video. Like, the curb, if the curb is normally yay high, like, there's no more curb. There's just water in some parts of D.C.
I think it looks a little bit better now. Yeah. It's clearing up.
Yeah, no, I was hoping that we got out of here, like, walking a couple blocks.
Oh,
was gonna be a big deal. It's one of those, like, monsoon quickly and then get out of town thunderstorms, which is A-okay. We can deal with that. But we don't want a long-term thunderstorm situation. I hope everybody's I'm sure the Beltway is a mess. I'm sure, but then again, it's a Monday on the Beltway, so,
Yep.
Is what it is. Enjoy them. And if it's not, enjoy them now because you got about 3 of them left before school gets back in session, everybody goes to work, and you know that life. You live out in the burbs.
I do. I do. I know that life too well. I've enjoyed, cruising home Mondays after work this summer, and that will be coming to an end very soon.
Also, can you remind me after the segment I have to ask the boss something?
Yes.
I just remembered it, and I'm hoping that he's not about to leave because it is, 5:30. Just remind me after the segment.
I got you.
Okay, good. As for right now, it is time on a Monday, a.k.a. the day after a game, kind of, first show after the game, to update our 53. Who is going to make the Commanders roster? This is the question. If you're watching on the stream, guess what? You get to follow along because, kiddos, here we go. Ta-da! It is our very fancy graphic with the roster projection on it. So if you're watching on the stream, you get to get it. Anthony is also looking very intently at a very small screen that he has. I'm gonna open this up full screen over here. But I don't think much has changed off the top of the roster, the top 6 that at least we have in this order. The quarterbacks are going to be the 3 quarterbacks. And if it's not, it's because another quarterback gets cut somewhere else and Jake Fromm gets replaced. With the new roster rule, it makes too much sense to have a 3rd quarterback on your 53. So I think they will go with 3. Fromm was okay. He's actually had a pretty good camp. The interception that he threw intended for Curtis Hodges was a bad ball. He's not, if he has got to play, like, your season's over. It just is what it is. All due respect to Jake Fromm. But Howell, Brissett, and Fromm are your 3 guys. And hopefully he's, like, super valuable in the meeting rooms and contributes that way. Running back, Robinson, Gibson, Rodriguez. Rodriguez, what a day. That dude's going to earn himself carries. Because, especially if he continues to do this in the preseason, like, if he plays week 3 of the preseason, Anthony, does he, plays, does he have 100 yards rushing in week 3 of the preseason?
I think that's safe to say. But, I mean,
I don't think they would give him, 25 carries.
Yeah, it's going to be spread out.
I guess if you average 5 a carry, you still need 20 carries to get 100.
Yeah.
Which makes it really impressive. Guys rush for 100 yards with frequency? Damn.
Yep.
It's crazy. Well, you put it that way. But, man, he was so hard to bring down. You cannot arm tackle that dude. He's got young, fresh, angry legs. So he's safe. Then you get into the fun part. You get into kind of your first thing. I'm keeping Alex Arma on the team. I watch how they call plays. I've watched how they've practiced. I think a fullback is not a necessity, but a real asset to this team, and he's the fullback. So I've got my 4th running back with all due respect to Jonathan Williams, all due respect to Jarrett Patterson, all due respect to Derek Gore. Do we decide it's Derek Gore or Nick Gore? It's Derek Gore, right?
It's Derek Gore, yes.
Apologies to him. Yeah, I think Alex Arm is making the team. Agree, disagree?
Oh, I'm all the way there with you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that gets us to 7. Only 46 more to go. Math. Yeah. All right. McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel, Brown, Pringle, Milne. That is currently my 6 at receiver.
Ooh.
Pringle did nothing to change that. Milne had a catch or two and kind of reminded you. He also was, to quote our favorite Ted Lasso, Jamie Tart, poop as a punt returner. That 6th receiver spot is one I do not have any idea what to do with.
Come on over here, Craig.
Come
on over here.
Tell me, Anthony.
Casimir Allen. He's going to be number 6. I like what he did in the return game. Granted, it didn't really amount to much. But for him to go out there, 2 punt returns, net average 12 yards, and then also on the kick return, about 20 yards. We saw the burst. We saw the explosiveness. We saw what he could do, if given the opportunity. So that's where I am. I'm putting all my chips in his basket for wide receiver number 6. I understand Milne is yours, but
it's not even. I don't even like Milne that much. I just think he's the kind of player that coaches love. Like, he's reliable.
I understand.
He does the right stuff.
Yes.
He runs his routes at the right depth. He's sure-handed. Like, he's not gonna screw up a play, and he can play multiple. That's the other thing too. Like, as a depth piece, he plays multiple spots. This is the problem. If you need an insurance policy, Dax Milne's the best you got.
Yep.
Because he can play every single receiver position, none of them particularly fantastically, but he plays them all fine.
Mm-hmm.
But he can reliably play them all. If you want actual play upside, Kaz Allen or one of the other young guys, a Tinsley, a Bryson Tremaine, them dudes are better options. This is where I struggle because coaches tend to go for the guy that they can rely upon, and I would probably go the other way. For today, based off the pop, and also I do think Milne it's like they told him, hey man, we want to see you actually return a punt. He's like, okay, and then he stepped out of bounds. So I'm gonna switch it out.
Oh,
I'm going Kaz Allen.
Yes, sir. Do you think they keep 7 by any chance?
Let's see as we go, because there's a chance. I think yes. The short answer is yes.
But also, if they keep 7, one of those guys has to play special teams, like punt return, kick return.
Well, it's not even that. They got to cover,
Yeah.
which I think Milne. I think Milne was on that stuff last year, which is another one in his category.
Okay.
But Byron Pringle will do that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, Logan Thomas, John Bates, Cole Turner. I still feel good about that.
Yep. Even though they did sign another tight end.
They did, but so I was talking about this with someone over there last week. When you get injuries at a specific position, which they've got, because remember, they came into this with Armani Rogers, which was a great point by Fortier earlier, how much that injury hurts right now. But they had Rogers and they had Logan Thomas, and they were down those 2 guys. The reps don't stop. They still have to practice, and someone's got to play tight end.
Yeah.
And so you wind up overloading these guys, and it actually winds up in this hellscape of an injury spiral if you're not careful. So they needed another body. But I'm so torn on Curtis Hodges. Because, the upside is there. I mean, on the route that Fromm gets picked off, the ball that he gets picked off, Hodges runs a great route and is open. And if Fromm just dots him, he's in the red zone, what is he, at the 5-yard line?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's a pick, and there's nothing you can do about it. I wanted to be mad at him about it and be like, it's another example of you not finishing. But it wasn't. It was at the very end of his catch radius, and he's 6'8". What do you want him to do?
Yeah.
So this is probably the hardest one is Curtis Hodges. I'm going to stick to my guns as of right now and say they just keep the 3. But obviously, Logan Thomas's injury situation is another big one. I also think they can probably get Hodges to the practice squad. And the kid Dylan, 46, is at a decent little camp too, and he can probably get on the practice squad. So I think their depth is going to wind up there, and if they need to sign someone, they will. And we'll see who gets cut from other teams. This was a stacked tight end draft. So if one of these young guys that got drafted late didn't work out in camp, team tries to sneak him in the practice squad, commanders liked him, do they bring in an undrafted or a drafted free agent a la John Ridgway last year? I think it's on the table. Okay. Then we get to O-line. Leno, yep. Sadiq was back with the ones today in part of practice. Gates, yup. Cosme, yup. Wiley, even though some fans are ready to cut him, yes, all of you are overreacting way too much. Chris Paul, yup. Cornelius Lucas was great the other night. Now comes the hard part. So they started working Stromberg in at guard today, something we'll talk about a little bit more in the pick 6 at 6. And then Mason Brooks. Braden Daniels, Logan said he actually had a pretty good game. Wasn't great, but was good. One's a draft pick, one's not. In Mason Brooks, I think I'm going to have to switch that back. They're going to want to keep the draft pick. I'm going to put Braden Daniels back on the team.
It pains me. But I agree with you, Craig.
Especially if like Stromberg and here's the other thing though. We don't currently have Tyler Larson on this team.
He was working in with the guards as well.
He was, and he's the second string guy. That's probably a mistake. Are we going to have to cut someone? Did we wind up keeping a 6th linebacker? Who can I cut? We got to find a spot, bro.
I think it's because we have so many DBs.
I know who I'm going to cut. All right, I'm going to add another offensive lineman here. Man, this is tough. And I'm going to add Tyler Larson because right now he's above Stromberg on the depth chart, and he played really well the other night. No, the 2 offensive line was good the other night. Like Laufenberg was good. Like a bunch of dudes that are going to be on the practice squad or wind up making other teams. All right. God, the guy I'm going to cut is going to be a stunner because he's one of the guys that I said was a lock.
A lock.
A lock to. All right. Young, Allen, Payne, Sweat. Good.
Yes.
Smith Williams. Yup. Mathis. Yup. Ridgeway. Yup. Obata, Tuhill. Henry, man, that is the Henry Andre Jones spot.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep sticking with Henry for right now because he's the 5th rounder. But I'm even going to put in the side column Andre Jones Jr.
Yeah, I was about to say Andre Jones. He had a solid game. He had a QB hit. He could have had a sack.
He also played teams and was good.
Yep. Well, he got the penalty, but outside of that.
Yeah, but he's like involved.
Yeah. I like him, Craig.
I do too.
I like him over Henry right now.
Running out a lot roster spots, though.
Yep.
So then you got Davis, Barton, Mayo, Hudson at linebacker. Done and done. Here's where we make the cut.
Uh-oh.
Forbes, obviously good. BSJ, good. Fuller, good. Rashad Wild Goose is going bye-bye.
Oh, my gosh, Craig.
So here's why. And I don't feel good about it. I feel Rashad Wild Goose, don't hate me. Apparently a great young kid. He's played well. This is definitely not over. He's an NFL player, borderline, but he's an NFL player. He's played a lot in the nickel so far in camp. But where he was on the field in the 4th quarter playing outside, and it wasn't going great for him. So he doesn't have position flex. And I think the other guys that he's competing with are better special teams players. And that's what it's going to come down to.
So we have Danny Johnson over him?
Yes, I trust. They, for good reason, trust Danny Johnson all over the field. You don't ever want him to have to start 7 games for you, but if he's got to start 1 or 2, you're not dead in the water.
Yeah. I think Rashad Wagoose is playing in the 4. Just like Quan, they had him all over the place. So they had him in the nickel. They had him outside. I think they just wanted to see. And in Cam, we've seen him in the slot a lot.
Yeah, and he's had a good
with the
camp.
ones.
But how do you get Quan Martin? And look, I realize I'm saying this on the wrong day because everyone wants to cut Quan Martin and say he's a bust.
Yeah.
But how do you get Quan Martin on the field if Rashad Wildgoose is there?
Yep.
You don't. And so who would you rather have? Christian Holmes as one of your best gunners or Rashad Wildgoose as a break glass in case of emergency guy?
It is getting spicy.
I would rather have Holmes. And so, yeah, I feel bad because I think Goose has had a good camp, but I'm gonna put him. I needed a spot.
Okay.
And we still don't even have Andre Jones on the roster. We still don't have. We're still only rolling with 4 linebackers. But that O-line thing, man,
the D-line though. What if we're putting too many eggs in that basket? Granted, it is a strength of ours.
Who do you think is not making the team from this list? Is Ridgeway not making the team? No way.
I mean, if I had to cut one person, maybe a KJ Henry.
As of right now, but you'd put Andre Jones there. You wouldn't cut both of them.
I'm just saying if I had to keep Wild Goose, if I really wanted to keep Wild Goose, but I understand where you are in terms of Danny Johnson, Wild Goose, Quan Martin, picking between one of those guys. So I think it is tough.
Yeah, it's really tough. Man, I thought this was actually going to be easy exercise when we did it the first time, but nope. Yeah, so I'm going to say we lose Goose. Sorry, Goose.
Dang. All right. I'm looking forward to these Baltimore scrimmages.
Yeah, Christian Holmes, Danny Johnson, and then Derek Forrest, Cam Curl, Quan Martin, Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Tressway, Joey Sly, and Cameron Cheeseman. At least as of right now. Cheese, got to pick it up, bro.
Yeah.
Not had a particularly good couple of weeks, but nobody pays attention to the long snapper. So, well, he's not under heat, which is good because cheese melts or something. I don't know. What a terrible. Why did I do that? Why did I say that?
I don't know, Craig.
Let's get out of here. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. When we get back, you hear about the James Harden thing? If you did, you want to stay tuned. If not, you really want to stay tuned.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
On a Monday, it's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. all the latest training camp news coming up at 6 o'clock. It is our Pick 6 at 6. Then Trevor Sikkema joins us coming up from Pro Football Focus, my buddy, my pal, at 6:30. Right now, though, it's the time of week where we ask, what else happened this weekend? And really, Anthony, we're going to start and spend most of our time with something that technically didn't happen this weekend. It happened this morning. This was the first thing I saw when I opened social media this morning. Shams Charania from The Athletic was over in China. Either he's over there. I think he actually is over there, like doing some interviews and stuff. But he had the video of James Harden at an Adidas event saying, hey, Daryl Morey's a liar. I'm never playing for an organization that he is in charge of again. And then that didn't stop there, Anthony. He repeated it. He goes, let me repeat that in case anybody missed it. And Pablo Torre pointed this out, former ESPN with Meadowlark Media and Dan Le Batard's crew. James Harden did this in China, where Daryl Morey is the most hated man in the NBA because he had the audacity to speak the truth a couple years ago about some of the things that the Chinese government is doing that are horrendous and horrible and horrifying to the Uyghurs in the western part of the country. This seems particularly sinister and bad. James Harden is the all-time greatest at demanding a trade. He says, I repeat, just in case anybody didn't hear me, and he knows Shams is right there taking video, and I'm sure he was like, hey, man, make sure you get me when I speak to the crew. Daryl Morey is a liar. I will never play for an organization he's involved with again. And suddenly, Josh Harris's focus perhaps may be turned back from the Commanders to the 76ers. What a disaster. I mean, the Sixers should be thinking about championship. And now I got Joel Embiid sitting there like, oh, no. And damn it, I meant to double check this. But, Anthony, did you watch the latest Commanders log yet? I know I'm making this a bit about the Commanders for a second.
I did not.
But they did kind of behind the scenes of that first day with Harris. They had some behind the scenes footage of, the call to Grant and Danny with buying everybody beers and Goodell. And then the next day when they spoke to the employees and everything that happened at FedEx Field. And part of that was they overlaid a bunch of footage from, as Harris was talking about the things they've done in other organizations. And I definitely remember footage of Tyrese Maxey. And I definitely remember footage of Joel Embiid. And I definitely remember footage of Daryl Morey. And I do not remember any footage of James Harden. I'm just saying, whatever that's worth. There might have been, I can't swear, and I meant to double check before I brought that up, but I definitely remember the other three. But they've got a real situation on their hands when they've got an MVP who's already rumbled to be a little disgruntled, and the Knicks are like, let's see if he wants out and wants to come to New York. And they're trying to figure out, like, how do we make him happy? And also, does anybody in the league want to trade for James Harden? It's 1 year, unless you want to re-sign him. But at that point, what are you giving up? I'm not giving up anything for James Harden. This dude is so unreliable. There is one more layer of comedy, though. Did you see Kyrie Irving tweet?
About James?
Yeah. Adrian Wojnarowski put out a story talking about the disgruntled superstar, James Harden. And Kyrie tweeted back, going, is he disgruntled, Adrian, or is he just exposing the lies that Morey told him throughout the contract negotiations? One, Kyrie, you don't seem to understand what disgruntled means. You can be telling the truth and be disgruntled. So I don't know whether Morey is telling the truth, whether Morey's a liar or not. I don't know whether Harden is telling the truth or not. He is certainly disgruntled by the definition of the word. Two, he thinks you are a gigantic weirdo and you should absolutely sit this one out. The stories that came out of Harden leaving Brooklyn basically being like, get me the bleep out of here. This sage lighting weirdo makes life a living hell and he won't get vaccinated and he's screwing up our whole season because he's a doofus. Like, God, Kyrie, or like, few athletes get underneath my skin like Kyrie Irving because few athletes lack the self-awareness of Kyrie Irving. And lack of self-awareness is perhaps one of my least favorite traits in human beings. What? Like, not you, man. Not here, not now. What are you doing? Shush. Shush, 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 shush. I just imagine James seeing that in he's watching everything go down in China. He's perusing Twitter on some flight or some bus. He's like, you? Whatever.
Yo, this is too much. Oh my.
There is no better soap opera than the NBA. And I'm, just to be clear, I am straight laughing. Straight laughing. Other things that happened this weekend. What else happened this weekend? Still, Anthony, brought to you by nobody.
Yes.
USA basketball beats Slovenia with no Luka, beats Spain, who's technically number 1 in the world right now, as they get ready for the FIBA World Cup. They're 3-0 in their pre-World Cup tour. They have 2 more games left against Greece and Germany. Giannis not playing in FIBA at all for Greece. Wish we had more time to talk about this today with all the Commander stuff, but Nationals, you at least get your round of applause. What a win coming from behind over the A's. Got a little bit overshadowed because it was Nats A's and the Yankees imploded as well. Yankees in deep, deep trouble. And the Women's World Cup now down to 4. You have Spain and Sweden in one semifinal. That is, I believe, I hate doing this because it's like tomorrow morning, this morning. It's overnight tonight at 4 a.m. So tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. That is the first semifinal. And then England-Australia Wednesday, I believe, at 6 a.m. I might have those two backwards in terms of the days and times. But those are the 2 matchups. England-Australia is going to be incredible. I mean, both matches will. But that's your Final 4 in the Women's World Cup. Then the final comes up this weekend. That's what else happened this weekend. Commanders also had 2 training camp practices, I guess this weekend / this morning, coming off the game. Get you updated on the latest injury news, the latest happenings. It's our training camp pick 6 at 6 next on the Hoffman Show. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Just after 6 o'clock, where we will hit you on this training camp practice Monday with a pick six at 6 in just a moment. We'll tell you first, though, that in 25 minutes at the bottom of the hour, Pro Football Focus's Trevor Sikkema joins this fine radio program. So Trevor coming up at 6:30. Right now, though, it is time for our training camp pick six at 6, which, Anthony, is still brought to you by. You can do it this time.
Nobody.
Yeah. Us and EJ's need us out of the night.
Yes, sir.
We're just here. You can change that. Contact our sales team. Cha-ching. All right. It's time for our training camp pick six at 6. 6 biggest storylines from training camp each and every day. And unfortunately, today, the biggest storyline is the injury, comings and goings of the team. A bunch of players in, out. Guys got tweaked this, banged up that. Turns out there's some cramping for some guys that had them missing reps. But this is not a great time because tomorrow is the first of the 2 biggest practices of the year. And the next biggest one's the day after that, at least of training camp. Of course, the joint practice in Baltimore. So who the hell is going to practice up in Owings Mills? Ron Rivera after camp today.
Well, we'll see. We'll get the medical update after today. We had a couple guys that we were holding out of practice today just to be careful with them. We'll see how they are tonight and tomorrow going into practice before we decide definitively who will and who won't practice.
St. Juice was one of them.
Yep.
Is he dealing with an injury, or is that?
He got a little tweak on his ankle, and so
Okay.
Obviously a guy that runs a lot, you don't want to get out there and exacerbate the injury. So we just want to be smart, see how he is. We slowed him down yesterday. Today we just kept him out.
And then we saw AG as he was walking off with a trainer. He was limping pretty good. Do you know what's going on there?
Nope, got no idea there.
Honestly, Anthony, do we need to cut the Rivera? Nope, no idea there.
I think so.
And have it on the board when we get our board back?
Yeah.
Okay, let's mark that, cut that. That feels like it could be useful down the road in a very childish sports radio kind of way. The good news is, in terms of the substance there, is that Antonio Gibson's fine. He just had some cramping. But there's so many injuries, so many guys coming and going today that Rivera literally couldn't keep track. And that also happened at the very end of practice. So, no big deal that Ron didn't know. It just happened to be how it went on this particular day. But Gibson cramps. Get that kid some salt and some water, and he'll be good to go for tomorrow. That is the kind of main injury update, being very, very cautious with guys. The one that was scary today was Sam Cosmi, because if he goes down, bad news. The good news is he went back in there after his knee got caught up. Here's Rivera talking about it afterwards. Our second thing in our training camp pick six at 6.
Yeah, he sounded like he hyperextended it. He went back out and finished practice.
Yeah.
But it sounded like he had hyperextended it. He had his leg locked out, and somebody hit the kneecap, from what I'm being told.
Ouch.
And so far, everything seems to be good. He went back, finished practice. So
that's good. You do wonder, though, sometimes those things swell up, or kind of the soreness sets in, the adrenaline wears off. If he's going to miss time, that would be real big bummer for Sam Cosmi, because obviously Ravens have a lot of great defensive linemen. They are particularly good inside. So some really great opportunities the next couple of days. It's not like he doesn't face great interior defensive linemen every day at practice, but you get to see some different ones. You get to see some different looks, how they line up, how they teach different techniques to get practice when he hasn't had a ton of reps inside at guard. So I'm very hopeful that he can practice. But if he goes down, man, you're in a bad situation from an experience standpoint. I know we all like Mason Brooks and what he's done so far. Jones Smith, number 60, has done a great job throughout training camp. We don't even get to mention him because everyone falls in love with Brooks. You've obviously got the 2 guys battling at left guard. Could one of them kick over to right? Could Larson or Noah Laufenberg, who actually I think played the second string right guard in the game on Friday, who was great. God, he's a big fella. Could he play there? Yes to all of this. So you're not it's not like you don't know who could, or you don't even have options to step in. It's just you really would like someone in your offensive line to be elite. And Sam Cosby's got the best chance of anyone. It's a former second-round pick who's kicked down inside. He could be really, really special at guard. So not having him out there would be a huge bummer. Hopefully he is okay. And we'll see when we get out to Owings Mills tomorrow. The other big one that I would say is, I don't even know if it's a bigger deal than Cosby, but is, I don't know if it's a 5-alarm fire, but it's like there's an alarm and there's a fire. Logan Thomas has continued to miss time with this calf injury. Ron addressed it afterwards.
Yep, this is caution. I'll tell you, he's a little bit older veteran guy, a guy that's coming back. We just want to be careful with him. Maybe we're being overly cautious, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is the guy's ready to play when we open up the season.
And kind of sticking with him because of the age and the experience, does that allow you then to be even extra slow with him?
Yes, it does, especially a guy in his position. That's so important for us. It wouldn't do us any good to get him out there a little too early, and all of a sudden, that injury flares up again. So for the most part, we just want to be cautious. We want to take our time with an aged veteran like that.
One, I just imagine Logan Thomas being like, "Can you quit calling me old man? Gah! My calf." Everything Ron says is technically correct. You can afford for a guy who is as smart and as experienced as Logan Thomas to take a little extra time. But the ramp up is also really important. Now, they've got a long time before they got to play football, and they could always limit his reps in the first couple weeks of the season if they had to. But, the whole point of the preseason is to get ready for the season. And if you don't do that, the chances that you'll be ready are not very good. It is hard to simulate 11-on-11 football. And the intensity and the repetition and the timing and, how much have we talked about Bieniemy getting these guys in shape? He's missing all of this. And it's now gotten to the point that I don't think it is good. I know, bold take, but if you miss a couple days, it's not that big of a deal. You start to miss a week and a half, 2 weeks. Now you have missed a significant chunk of time and you are behind. And that doesn't mean you can't make it up. It doesn't mean that they're not being smart either. And let me be clear on that, because what's worse than holding a guy out and having him miss the time now is trying to bring him back too soon and he misses more time later. Because time now doesn't miss you any regular season football games. Time later does. And you can't lose a regular season game before you play it. So I would much rather have Logan Thomas healthy for the season, even if he's a little bit limited and a little bit behind mentally and physically compared to his teammates, or where he would have been had he not missed the time. But that is not an option right now. So they have to be careful. They have to be cautious. But it is the kind of thing that it comes with consequences. The consequences are you miss a ton of valuable practice time. And if it wasn't valuable, then why would you do so much of it? Football, they practice way more than they play. And it's because to execute at the level you need to succeed in the NFL takes a lot of practice. And I would very much hope that we see that. Logan Thomas is back out there on the practice field soon. All right, those are our first three of our training camp pick six at 6. Speaking of being nervous about some injury stuff, Chase Young, the stinger. Anthony, scale of 1 to 10. How nervous are you about this?
It's 10. I'm very
10
concerned.
is we put our shirts over our head and run around the studio screaming because we're having a total meltdown. 1 is we don't care.
I'm at a 1 or 2.
Okay, I'm at a 3.
I understand, Ron and crew wanting to be cautious. I think they've just been cautious all camp, to be honest. So I don't mind, Chase, missing today and yesterday.
Yeah.
But tomorrow? Oh, nah, you got to be out there, brother, man.
Yeah. It's
got to be out there.
Because he's not Logan Thomas, right? He's a younger guy who's got to get reps, got to get ready. And it's also, what I think both of these injuries signify on some level is a reminder that it can change at any time. Yep. The total dynamic of this can change at any time. And we see it every single year. Some important player goes down in a camp and it's oh, well, we've spent all this time off season prognosticating that that's a 12-win team because X, Y, and Z. And all of a sudden, Z is not there anymore, and you're like, what are they? If it's a quarterback, it's like put done. But like, think of how many times like Keenan Allen or someone like that for the Chargers has gone down, and it's totally affected their season. So, man, it's tough. And they've got to be smart. You don't want to rush guys out there, but it is the kind of thing for Chase that, like, to get the best out of him, I want to see him out there as often as possible during these, especially during these joint practices. And it's just a reminder that, like, just because the knee's better now, like, stuff can still happen. And I wish it would stop happening to him, because on the play he gets hurt on, he destroyed that tackle. And if it's not a mobile quarterback who's really, really strong, that's a sack. It's a sack on 23 of the 32 starting quarterbacks in the league. And if that's what that dude's going to give you, like, this defense is gross. And, like, James is great. Casey's great. They're not Chase Young. And so, I don't know, man. It's just like, I hate this. I hate myself already for saying this, but, like, it's a bad vibes deal where it's like, not another thing. And that's what I hate about it. But I hope the best for Chase and that this is like nothing by tomorrow.
So are you concerned?
I'm not concerned on the actual substance. I don't think this, like, it's a stinger. They can linger, but it doesn't sound like it's a big one.
Yeah.
Like, he was, hooting and hollering and doing his Chase Young thing the rest of the game, but not playing football. I think they're being cautious because they want to have him out there the next 2 days. So I'm not concerned about the stinger. I got a bad feeling. And that is the worst freaking analysis you will ever get on this show. But it's just kind of another thing, and you just hope that he can stop having... And this is not like me saying Chase is a distraction, Chase is that. Like, to be very, very clear, I hate this for Chase. I wish he could just have a clean camp and get out there week 1 and be like, all right, Colt McCoy, time to die. Be nice to Colt. He's a very nice gentleman. Thing number 4. That makes sense?
Nah, yeah.
All right, good. Thing number 4 in our training camp pick 6 at 6 is a tweet from Nikki Javala. Dax Milne just had this is from practice earlier today, obviously. Dax Milne just had a one-handed catch along the sideline and gave the defense the bird on his way back to the line of scrimmage. We might as well end camp now. It was very much a joke, in good fun. That's good. Nikki clarified that when someone asked. But I, Anthony, have questions. Mainly, and I gotta remember that I'm on a video stream right now. I can't start acting stuff out. But did he catch the ball with one hand and then, like, either transfer, drop, spike the ball, whatever, and give the bird with the same hand? Or did he catch with one hand and bird with the other?
So I'm thinking, because I saw the replay on the Commanders' Twitter page.
I'm going to guess that they left out the bird.
Oh, yeah, they did. But it looked as though he was going out of bounds. So I think he toe-tapped the sideline with the one-hand catch. Somebody from the sideline said something. As he's jogging back, he, real quick, and then went back to the offensive huddle because,
So he no longer had the ball.
He might have had you can still, like, have the ball, like, running back.
Yeah,
and then turn.
Bang.
Yep. Yeah, it was real quick, real subtle.
Bird. The uppercut Larry.
Yes, sir.
If you will. These are the questions I have. But it is the kind of thing that, like, the chippiness, it's fun. Rivera had a quote today. He doesn't want any quote-unquote BS.
Yep.
He didn't say BS. He's not regulated by the FCC. But it's kind of the chippiness of camp that is fun and competitive and playful, and it's a good time when it's between teammates. You do that to a DB or the Ravens sideline, someone might not think it's so funny.
Man,
so get it out of your system today, kids. I really don't want to cover a brawl.
It's crazy though, Craig, because this is our first joint practice since 2015, and the last time we had a joint practice, what happened, Craig?
There was a brawl.
Exactly.
And I know, because I was there. I was very close to the brawl. There is something, a level of like survival instinct that kicks in when 300-pound men start punching each other 10 feet in front of you that says, I'm going to get out of the way. I don't care about documenting this. I don't care about telling the stories later. My job is now irrelevant. My survival is top thing.
Yep.
Trent Williams is ready to kill somebody. I do not need to be in the vicinity to potentially, purposely or accidentally, be an option. Trent and I got along great. He wasn't going to kill me, at least on purpose. But people were swinging. Helmets got swung, I think, in that fight. It was
ugly.
That was a bad one.
And it was on Hard Knocks?
No, that wasn't on Hard Knocks. The Hard Knocks fight with the Commanders or with Washington was 20.
D-Hall.
Yeah, I want to say it was 2013.
Okay.
But it was the Texans' year on Hard Knocks.
Yep.
Joint practice. D-Hall, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
That was bad.
I think that was his rookie season or his second season.
D-Hops, yeah. Yeah. They should be fine. Rivera, Harbaugh, been around relatively mature football teams, although you always get some younger guys that are chippy at the bottom end of the roster. Often, like Nick Gates could definitely start something.
Oh, man.
John Ridgeway could definitely start something.
Oh.
But here's the key. 2 days.
Yep.
Third day, guaranteed fight. 2 days, you might get a scuffle, but you typically avoid the brawl. 3 days, if you ever hear of NFL teams scheduling 3 days of joint practices and you want to see a large fight, go on day 3. They never finish.
Good gracious.
Always a fight on day 3.
It gets chippy though on day 2, I think.
It definitely does. By day 2, it's like we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And by the way, I don't know if we've said this yet. I know Russell, appreciate him shouting it out just due to the logistics and, you know, how it all goes. Your boys representing the station up there. I'm going to the joint practices, so I'm excited. So I will report back the next couple days, obviously, on what I see. You'll probably hear me not only on this show between 4 and 7, but I would assume I would be calling into the other shows as well. So next 2 days, check me out wherever I show up, talking football on your radio. Last thing on our training camp, pick 6 at 6. The left guard spot, it is not done yet in terms of the position battle. Sadiq Charles getting some reps again with the ones today. Chris Paul in for some as Charles is limited in his reps on his way back, but actually got out there against some defenders today. Very curious to see how the next 2 days go for him, both from like an injury management standpoint. But the other thing, Anthony, is I think you're reminded in the game where Chris Paul played well, but you're reminded like, oh yeah, if they can get Sadiq, there's a different level. And with the athleticism in the screen game, which was a problem for them, if they can get the athleticism of Charles on the field and he can be as consistent as Chris Paul is or has been, and the team as a whole, that unit as a whole can gel. Sadiq Charles, there's a reason he was a 4th rounder and Paul was a 7th rounder. They both have some elite traits but obviously lack consistency. Paul's elite trait is his strength. Charles's elite trait is his athleticism. Maybe not elite, but like really, really above average trait is his athleticism. And if they can get him in space more, he's got a chance to prove why he should win this job still. So Sadiq Charles back with the ones today.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he keeps going back to the ones is a sign that the staff really likes him over Charles, even though everybody else is raving about, what
over
Chris
Paul.
Paul
Yeah.
what Chris Paul has done. So
100%.
It's gonna be interesting, man.
They want to give him a shot, but they gotta play well as a unit when he's in there, and he's got to be a big part of it because they have played generally well as a unit with Chris Paul, and that's what matters. Keep Sam upright, keep Jacoby upright. Off they go. All right, that is our training camp. Pick 6 at 6. Obviously, big pick 6 at 6s tomorrow and Wednesday, coming off the joint practices. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, gives his take on what he saw from Sam Howell, Jahan Dotson, Chase Young. And I think I'm going to ask Trevor this. At this point, get a good national perspective from a guy who's really plugged in. Would you rather invest long-term in Chase with some of the flashes that we've seen or Montez with the consistency? Ask Trevor that next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, which is where you can watch our next guest on Pro Football Focus's channel. It's Trevor Sikkema, my guy. What's up? How are you?
I'm fantastic, my friend. Always good to be with you. And always good to talk some new ball now as the preseason is underway. So I'm excited about it.
It's so funny because I've had this conversation so much. It's like people want to make so much out of the preseason. It's like it's 3 drives, for instance, for the Commanders starting offense. But it's also the only 3 drives we have, and that's better than the 3 drives that we didn't have before. So I know you watched a little bit of what Sam and Hal did with the first team the other night. What did you make of his performance within that context of its 3 drives of preseason football?
Dude, I liked it, man. Obviously, like the touchdown throw was really nice. You know, you're looking at a sail concept where you're overloading one side of the field, but I mean, he ran that plenty of times when he was at North Carolina. He understood the timing of it. It was obviously a great route by Jahan Dotson as well. So it was just, you know, like you said, it's not a large sample size, but even the small sample size that we got, Howell is showing us at least glimpses of, okay, yeah, this guy deserves a starting shot, or at least he deserves to be within that conversation. It's not like you look at his draft label and say, oh, he was a 5th-round pick. This guy's not going to make it in the league. I've had this conversation with you before. I thought it was ridiculous that he was a 5th-round pick anyways. I mean, his tape, no matter what you look at, whether it was that junior year, which he was using a lot more of his legs, or the previous 2 years in which he was a passer, more as an underclassman, both of those scenarios, like both of those years, I would say sophomore and junior year is a lot better than a 5th-round pick. So I was very shocked that he was drafted that low, and I think that he's already showing in the preseason that he's kind of outplaying that. And what I like the most about him is he was able to still give you the best of both worlds, where he has a little bit of escapability. He's able to extend plays with his legs, and then he's very comfortable throwing on the run. Like, that's just an important part of playing in the league. And I always felt like his background was going to set him up well to make plays like that, which, again, not to sound like a broken record, but which is why I was shocked that he was picked as low as he was, because I felt like he's already shown areas of play that you would want to see at the NFL level. So he's kind of putting it all together right now. Small sample size, but it was good to see from Sam.
Yeah, definitely wasn't too big for him, which I think is the number one thing we were looking for. There's a rhythm and a crispness to the offense. That was nice. And then he's got dudes on the outside. Jahan Dotson showed his dudeness on that route. Imagine being like the second string safety on the Browns, and you wind up man-to-man against Jahan Dotson, and you're just like, oh, this is not good for my prospects. And sure enough, you get turned sideways. But I'm also curious, like, you're a big draft guy, Trevor, for those that aren't as familiar with your work. You should be, but for those that are not, there was kind of like an eyebrow raise when they took him at 16 a couple years ago. Oh, that's not the guy we expected to go in this receiver class that high. Where were you on him, and what did you make of what you saw from him and where he is now?
So I like Dotson. I did not think he was going to go in the first round. I didn't, because it was a stacked wide receiver class. He was a smaller player, like really good contested catch ability. I felt like when he was at Penn State, he was a pretty good route runner. But you know, when you looked at the rest of the receivers that were in that class that he was going up against, I just wasn't sure that his name was going to be near the top like it ended up being with where he was selected. Now, the contested catch stuff is really nice, but you go, okay, well, he's not the biggest wide receiver in the world, so it's not like you're going to be giving him a lot of 50-50 balls anyways. You're just going to be like chucking it up deep and having him try to go up and get it. And so I wondered how many of those contested catch opportunities in the way that we saw them at Penn State were going to manifest themselves at the NFL level for him. So if I go, okay, well, here's a strength that he had, how many opportunities is he going to get to really shine there? It compounds when you realize how good of a route runner he is truly becoming. Like, I thought he was a good route runner when he was at Penn State, and I thought that there was room for him to grow to even be better. But shoot, man, even through the time that he has missed, he has shown that he is taking separation school very seriously. Like, he is learning that has to be a major part of his game, because then all of a sudden, if you become this great route runner, which we are already seeing that he is definitely becoming, then when you look at some of that contested catch ability, that one-handed catch ability, all that, when you make those bonuses on top of you being a great route runner, that rounds out the profile of somebody who has the athleticism that Jahan Dotson does and the size that he does to say, okay, we're making the most out of this mold of a wide receiver. So he's done a great job, I think, and I should say it's even more of a hat tip to him, given the time that he missed due to injury, that he has become the route runner that we're already seeing, and something that we saw in that first preseason game. So it's going to be huge, man. You mentioned it's unfortunate some second, third stringer going up against Jahan Dotson. It's not just Jahan Dotson. It's a motivated Jahan Dotson, right? Because you guys have read the quotes all offseason. Like, he feels like he's being disrespected. He feels like he is not considered one of those great young wide receivers. His name is often either at the back end of lists or not on lists at all. So he seems extremely motivated. I think you saw a little bit about that this weekend too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you don't have to worry about contested catches if the DB's on the ground, because you just routed him up.
This is very true.
Like, he has become such an exceptional route runner. I think he's the best route runner on the team. And, you know, McLaurin might wind up having more receiving yards, but I will not be surprised if he has more receptions this year. Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, with us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, Chase Young on the other side of the ball, the other kind of highlight piece. Unfortunately for him, like, the biggest storyline coming out of the game is a little bit of a stinger, only plays 4 snaps, but it comes on a play where he reminds us why he was taken second overall. Limited snaps, but what did you see from Chase, and does it change at all what you think he's capable of this season?
No, I mean, like, it doesn't really change my mind, because I already thought that the ceiling was incredibly high for him. You know, you look at going back to Ohio State, I think that final year, that last year of draft eligibility that he had that junior year, he has the single season record for highest pass rush grade that we have recorded at the college level. So, yeah, I mean, like, we always knew it was there for him, but just like with so many other, I would say, great pass rushers that have been highly drafted prospects before, it's not as much of a sure thing as people want to admit, it seems, when you have these guys that absolutely dominate at the college level. It's not going to be that easy in the NFL. You have to, no matter who you are, no matter how talented you are, you have to hone in on your technique, or you're not going to live up to the billing that people had for you going in. I mean, I was having this conversation with people just last week about, like, Jadeveon Clowney, right? When Jadeveon Clowney was coming out of his class, and he was so incredibly athletic, he was so big, he was so strong, he was so fast, but Clowney at the NFL level, he just seemed to try to live off of that great athleticism like he did in college, and he wasn't as good as it felt like he could have been, because that technique, that pass rush plan, really getting on the details of winning with your brain as much as you are winning with your athleticism, like, that just didn't come along for Clowney. For Chase Young, it felt like even before he got hurt, he was really still trying to out-athlete people at the NFL level, and it just doesn't work out like that with offensive tackles. And I think he got a taste of, okay, like, I gotta be better in a lot of different areas with where to place my hands and which rush moves to do here, and, like, having that pass rush plan, like, all that is super important. And yeah, I wish we would have got to see him more this past weekend. But again, you know, the flashes of that one pressure that he got off the edge, I mean, he's just straight up overwhelming. I think it was DeJuan Jones, right, who was at offensive tackling. He's just straight overwhelming him with how talented he is. And so that physical ability is still there, and it was great to see, but it was always going to have to be more than that. And I think that's what this season is about for him.
Yeah. This is the decision that ultimately the Commanders front office is going to have to make, likely after the season. I mean, if things go sideways, they could make a trade or something in the middle of the season. But, like, long-term prospects, are you higher on Sweat or Young?
I'd still be higher on Young, you know, and maybe it's just me clinging to what we saw at Ohio State, but I think it's a journey for every prospect. Not everybody hits the ground running. And for some guys, it really takes until their third, fourth years in the league for things to really click, and especially given the injury that he had. So, you know, not only did he miss all that time due to injury, miss all those snaps due to injury, but also it was the recovery time of making sure that he felt better within his own body. Like, when you take that into account, there is realistic reason to believe that this year is the year he catches fire. And I felt like Chase Young had a higher ceiling than Montez Sweat when both of them were prospects, and I would feel the same way now, unless he gives me reason to believe otherwise with maybe a down year this year, just not really a productive year this year. I'm still going to say Chase Young right now.
Yeah, and that's the good news for the Commanders front office, is they have the season of data. Everyone wants to make the decision now, and, you know, I just made you do it for radio entertainment purposes, but it's like, hey, you know what we could do? We could watch the season. That would be cool. All right, Trevor Sikkema is with us from Pro Football Focus. Last thing, and I'm going to let you pick your favorite thing that you saw this weekend, NFL preseason action, non-Commanders Browns territory.
Oh, my favorite thing that I saw. I got a kick out of watching the Ravens QB2 situation. I really did. I know that it's not like a big headline thing, but I was actually
here because you got joint practices the next 2 days with them. So
look, they have obviously Lamar, who's going to start for them. But things get really interesting with the Ravens in their QB2 spot because they have Tyler Huntley, but then they also have Josh Johnson. Both of those guys are playing at I would say, very high QB2 level. So one of them's going to win the backup starting QB spot, but then the other one's just going to be still sitting there on the roster. So all of a sudden, if both of these guys play really well during the preseason, not only does it extend the Ravens' insane preseason winning streak of 24 games, which goes back to 2015, by the way, but you talked about the deadline not too long ago. If we get close to the deadline, and one of these contending teams, maybe their starter is going to miss a month and a half, whatever it is. They don't have a viable QB2. Maybe one of those guys, Huntley or Josh Johnson, becomes an actual draft asset that they get to trade. Then all of a sudden they're still loading up and they're going to impact the next year's NFL draft as well. So that was fascinating to me because both of those guys played so well this weekend. Both of them have played so well before in the past that not only is it going to solidify a QB2 spot if Lamar ever gets banged up again, but maybe they also become QB sellers at the deadline with an asset of somebody who could fill in for a contender.
First of all, that is Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley to you.
This is true. Yes.
Second of all, as someone who was on the Washington beat in 2019 when Josh Johnson came in and finished that season, I cannot believe Josh Johnson is still in the league playing for yet another team. I think he's played for all of them. That'd actually be fun. Can he try to play for every single team? He's going to need a couple midseason trades. But
he's close.
He's closer than he should be.
Because how old is he? How old is Josh Johnson?
I don't know. Here, we're going to look this up. This is always my favorite radio, but we're going to look this up because
he's
the world deserves to know. He's 37.
That's older than I thought.
And that's the thing. He was in his 30s when he showed up and Jay Gruden was like, I don't know, we're going to let Josh run around in 2019. And he's played for literally 14 NFL teams.
Wow. Even if he gets half, even if we can get just 2 more in his career,
that'd be great.
Get half, to say that he played for half the league, because at that point, you got to think of the man cave, right? You have name on a game-worn jersey for 16 different teams.
Well, and that doesn't count the other leagues he's played in. I don't know what league the Sacramento Mountain Lions are in. Apparently an American football it's the American football team based in Sacramento, United Football League. But he played for him in 2012. He also played for the Los Angeles Wildcats, who can forget, of the original XFL 2.0, if the current one's 3.0 and the one with He Hate Me back in the day was 1.0. He played the San Diego Fleet in the Alliance. Remember the Alliance?
Oh, yeah. I forgot he was in that league.
So he's played for 17 teams, 14 NFL teams, and counting. Clearly, if there's one of those two guys gets midseason traded, it's going to be Josh Johnson, because that's what happens to Josh Johnson.
This is a work of art. This whole... He's played for the Niners 4 times. 2012, 2014, 2020, and then 2022. He's played for the Niners.
I think on your show, I was going to do this to you, but I decided that we didn't really have the time to do it properly. You on your show, just randomly, you should just quiz your co-host and be like, did Josh Johnson play for this team?
Oh, that's actually a great bit. That's a great bit. If we start that bit, I will give you full credit for it, but this is a great bit.
Excellent. That's all I need. All right. If you need me to come guest host it, I will buy a tiny microphone off Amazon and plug it in and everything. All right. That's Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus. He does fantastic football work and also bits. Thanks for coming on the show, buddy. I appreciate it.
Of course, my friend. Anytime.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 9.
the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Shout out to everyone watching today on the stream, enjoying the fancy new graphics. You can do that every single day at the Team 980. You miss any part of the show, you can rewind the stream. I do apologize. Today's stream will be in 2 parts because mysteriously it cut off after the first segment. But it's okay. We got it back up and running, and off it went. So we got that. And then you can also, of course, check out the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. The rewind feature on the Odyssey app. Basically, if you missed part of the show and you want to hear it, there are plenty of options for you to do so. Tomorrow on the show, full recap of joint practice number 1. I will be there, so we'll have plenty in the notepad. I probably will have one of the other beat reporters on. Anything else that we got planned for tomorrow, Anthony?
Tomorrow. It's tomorrow. That's all I know.
Thanks for the insight.
But I'll let you know.
I believe it or not, I figured that one out on my own.
Okay.
But thanks for playing.
Anytime.
How was your weekend, by the way? I didn't even ask. How rude.
My weekend was pretty chill. I went to brunch with my girlfriend.
And it was chill?
And I went to a comedy show.
Did you perform?
I did not perform this one.
Okay.
But it was for people like myself.
So, like, other amateur, like, it was an open mic?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
Gotcha. How was it?
It was all right.
Anybody just flat out suck?
What'd you say?
Anybody just flat out suck? Anybody terrible?
There were a couple of people.
Yeah.
There was one guy that was just up there, and he just had punchline jokes. Like, he wasn't storytelling. He was just up there, like, telling jokes.
Like knock-knock jokes.
They were not that good, though.
If you ever want a really good comedy special with some punchline jokes, Neil Brennan's 3 Mics is one of the most genius comedy specials I've ever seen. He's literally got 3 microphones. One, he does stories. One, he calls like deep stuff or serious stuff. And then he'll do like one-liners. So like do kind of a funny story. Then he'll go get really, really, really deep into something, like talk about like childhood trauma. And then he'll hit you with like a poop joke. And you're like, what in the whiplash is happening to me? It's really good. All right. That's not happening on the show tomorrow. All the other stuff that I told you is going to happen on the show tomorrow is. And right now, to close out this show, it is time for Real Things Real People Said in real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. The person who kind of originated this segment, Anthony, do you remember who the person who's like the king of Real Things?
His name is Kevin Harlan, and I think it's because of how he described the black cat in at MetLife.
No, you're half correct. That was an all-timer.
Okay.
But the first time that like ever came up with this segment, I needed an excuse to play Kevin Harlan doing play-by-play of a streaker.
Okay.
He has also made Hall of Fame-worthy appearances doing Burger King ads.
Yep.
Calling the black cat at MetLife.
Uh-huh.
And the legend was at it again during the Packers preseason broadcast this weekend.
Team is at it once. Each team is punted. Tonight's first quarter is brought to you by Cousin Subs. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes. Man, I'm starving. All paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, we believe in better. And I've eaten with you after games. You like to eat too.
Yeah, but I'm not hungry yet, Kevin. I'm not hungry yet.
You're always hungry. What do you mean? I know a woman back in Green Bay that says, oh, he is always hungry.
I'm going to guess that's his wife, whoever the analyst was.
I think so.
I'm hungry. I have a bag full of food here. Didn't eat it. Bad job by your boy today.
Terrible, because I ate all of mine.
Yeah, I saw you chomping down on a PB&J earlier, and I was like, damn, I'm jealous.
Yes.
Now I'm just going to have to go home and eat. But I don't know. It's a bad job. Kids, eat. It's good for you. Don't do it. I mean, I had some lunch today. It's not like I haven't eaten it all. I just brought more food that should have maximized my caloric intake, and I did a bad job. All right, we got a really good, interesting story from Gilbert Arenas that will play tomorrow. Also, Patrick Mahomes on Eric Bieniemy. We just don't have time to play either of them today. But I will make the promise now, as much as an accountability measure to myself, to play them for you tomorrow. See you then on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.
The Kevin